Now, today's session is Sociology. This is chapter 4, section 1. It talks about socialization. Before we start, we need to define what is socialization. It is the cultural process of learning that helps us as individuals participate in groups in life, which means socialization, in other words, is the ability of people to interact and take part in life. It's the process that happens to you from when you are a kid as you grow that helps you interact with people, take decisions, and become who you are.
بس I'm sorry بس ممكن حضرتك تدخلي فرح.
Okay. I have no one in the waiting room. Oh, okay, she just appeared.
Okay, I'll tell her.
Okay.
معلش يا مس النت خرجني.
It's okay. I was just saying that the whole chapter talks about socialization. Socialization means it's the process where people learn how to participate in life. What do we mean by participating in life? It means by participating in decision making, in actions, in building the character or building who you are. Now, socialization begins at birth. Okay, when you're born, you start at making certain actions and taking decisions even though you're not aware of it. You cry because you're hungry. This is an action that you made. Okay, as you grow up, these actions become more and more detailed, and these actions require more and more of your personality and of your brain. It continues throughout your life. Now, a successful process of socialization or a successful socialization will help you to join and fit all kinds of groups and all kinds of people. It allows you to be a social person and a healthy person. An unsuccessful socialization means that you failed to take part in certain activities or in a certain group, and it affected later on your personality, which means you tried to join a certain group or there's a certain incident that happened to you and there was a negative feedback. So you stopped socializing with people, you stopped talking to people you don't know, for example, or taking parts in activities with people that you're not familiar with. Now, psychiatrists, they pointed out to the importance of socialization in early life. They said that according to the studies, what happens to you in your early years defines more and more the way you act as you grow up. If a person, for example, faced a certain incident with water and then they became afraid of it or they had phobia from water, this is because it happened when they were young. If you wait until they grow up to try to convince them that they cannot get scared, it will be unsuccessful. So, socialization has to be done through the early years. By early years, we mean until the teens, until your teenage years. It should happen in the early years, and any reversible point will also happen through the early years. Now, children or infants, why do we say early years? Because children or infants, they cannot develop the capacity for language. They do not know how to deal with language. This is why it's very important to make sure that everything is clear and everything can reach them, which means a small baby, you cannot keep talking to him, telling him that this is right and this is wrong, and then let him go to the street and cross the street. They do not know yet. Their brain cannot process all what you said. So each stage has a certain way to deal with it. These are all steps of socialization, or these are all steps of how do we form the socialization process. Now, according to sociologists, they ran certain experiments to show you the effect of socialization and society. In order to make a healthy, fair experiment, if you remember from the experiments you searched for that violated the ASA code, most of you said two words: experimental group and control group. What does that mean? The control group is usually the normal group or the normal case in which we compare our results to. If, for example, we are carrying out an experiment to measure or to find out the percentage of dyslexic children in grade 2. And by the way, dyslexic means they have a problem in reading. When they read, the letters are flipped or the letters are not clear. This is a condition where little kids cannot read. If I'm going to carry out an experiment to find out the percentage of dyslexic kids, my experimental group is going to be a bunch of kids who are dyslexic. Okay? My and normal. I need to see which of them are dyslexic and which one is not. My control group will be completely and fine children that can read and write and they have no problem whatsoever. Normal kids. So I can compare this kid read the word this way, this one cannot read the word this way, so I can know where is the problem. Now, two psychologists, Harry Harlow and Margaret Harlow, they wanted to know the effect of isolation on the process of socialization. This is point number one that you have to write it down in your notebook after the definition of socialization and after the point that says when the socialization starts. The first experiment that was done to relate between socialization and isolation. They wanted to know if the child was isolated or if a person is isolated or if the infant is isolated, how does it affect him as they grow up? They made a series of experiments on rhesus monkeys. Rhesus monkeys are monkeys that shows the closest genetic traits as humans. The baby rhesus monkeys are 90% similar to baby humans. So they carried out the experiment on rhesus monkeys. The first experiment, they isolated the monkeys for different lengths of time. So they took a couple of monkeys, 4 monkeys, let's say. The first monkey, they isolated him for 1 month. The second monkey, they isolated him for 2 months. The third monkey, they isolated him for 6 months, and the fourth monkey for more than 6 months. And then, after this period of isolation, they would take the monkey and put him or put it with normal groups of monkeys. Go and socialize with the same species. So what happened is here. They found out that the monkeys that had been isolated for around 3 months, when they joined the group, they were able to learn and to play and to adjust to group life as if there was no isolation. There was no harm at all. But the monkeys that had been isolated for 6 months and more, they could not socialize with the other monkeys. They could not adjust to the other groups. Instead, they had certain weird characteristics and weird actions, and because of these weird actions, the other groups of monkeys rejected. So, as a result from this experiment, the Harlows concluded or reported that the infant monkeys that were raised in isolation, they became withdrawn and hostile adults. At first, When they were babies or when they were infants, they were isolated for a period of 6 months. They were left alone. After the 6 months, they were introduced to the rest of their group. They started acting in a different way, so the group or the pack rejected them, rejected the monkeys. The monkeys became left out or by themselves or alone. As these monkeys grew into adult monkeys, they became hostile. Hostile means unfriendly, or they have these aggressive traits. They became hostile and they became withdrawn. They did not join any future activities. Okay? They never exhibited normal sexual pattern as mothers and they rejected their babies. So those adults, the adult monkeys who were isolated for 6 months, if they were males and or boys or they grew up to be adult male monkeys, they do not have normal sexual patterns. And if they are females, when they grow up to be as mothers, they do not act like normal monkey mothers and instead they ignore and reject their babies. And in some extreme cases, they would hit the baby monkeys. Is the first experiment clear? Do you all understand the first experiment?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, tell me, in the first experiment, what was the control group?
The non-isolated monkeys.
Can you raise the hand, please? Myrna,
The group of monkeys.
they're all groups of monkeys. Even the experimental, they're
No.
all groups of monkeys. Define, be precise.
Okay. The normally socialized ones, the ones who
So,
were
normal rhesus monkeys. This is my
yes.
control group. Okay. What's the experimental group? Hands up, please.
Someone else.
Even Myrna. Oh, someone else, of course. Peter.
The monkeys that were isolated.
Okay, the group of monkeys that were isolated. This was my experimental group. Minna, how were the experimental groups divided?
They were isolated for different length of time, some for 3 months and other for 6 months. I will say the results or what?
No, this is what I want. How were the experimental groups divided? They were divided according to time. Some monkeys were isolated for less than 6 months, 3 months, and some were isolated for more. Okay? Now, the results. Abu Farh,
Yes, miss.
can you tell me monkeys that were isolated for less than 3 months, what were the results?
1 minute.
Hmm?
1 minute, please.
1 minute, you should answer. Those who were isolated for only 3 months. Can anyone answer?
They were able to learn to play.
Yes, they were able to socialize. The period of isolation did not affect them. This is the conclusion. Less than 3 months, isolation did not affect socialization. They were able to
Yes,
socialize, grow up normally, and become normal monkeys.
miss.
Okay. Nada, those who were isolated for more than 6 months,
They started acting differently.
they started
They weren't
acting.
able to socialize.
Like, first, just tell me the headlines. How did they act differently without giving examples?
They were unable to socialize.
They were unable to socialize. Now, Hamid, can you tell me examples of how were they not able to unsocialize when they were young?
when they were young
Oh,
themselves يعني ولا their mothers.
no, we said that when they were introduced, there was a certain problem. بعد كده, when they started growing up, it started showing as another problem.
they had social problems يعني with the other monkeys.
When they were first introduced after the period of 6 months as babies, what happened?
ثانية بفتكر.
Can anyone help?
ثانية لا هتيجي ثانية.
Okay.
They acted strange يعني and were
Exactly. They
rejected.
had, yes, the first step was when they were introduced, they started to act different than the rest of the monkeys at their age. So what was the reaction of the other monkeys?
أنا؟
Oh. No, انت بس action reaction and then I'll continue with someone else. The action is that they started acting weird. What happened?
They were rejected by them.
Exactly.
They were rejected.
Yes. But the reaction was that the other normal rhesus monkeys rejected the isolated ones. طيب, thank you, Hamid. I'll pick someone else now. Now, when they grew up as males, what characters did they demonstrate? Matar.
Yes. Can you
When
repeat?
isolated rhesus monkeys, when after they got rejected and they lived alone, when they grew up as males, what characters did they show?
They didn't demonstrate normal sexual activity. صح.
Okay, thank you. Farah, as females, what did they do?
Hashimas, can you repeat the question?
Do I have to repeat the question for every single one so that you can do
لا
whatever
لا أنا ما سمعتش فعلا.
Farah, rhesus
لا
monkeys,
والله ما كنت سمعت.
little rhesus monkeys, they grew up. When they grow up as males, they demonstrated weird sexual activities. As females, اللي هو mom monkeys, how were they different?
Okay, they ignore their babies
Mm-hmm.
or sometimes abuse them.
Okay. Or
Mm,
هم عملوا 3 حاجات.
or
Starting from the easiest to the hardest.
they reject them.
Exactly. Ignore, reject, and the worst was abuse. Thank you. So who can tell me what they wanted to carry out an experiment to prove a certain hypothesis. Who can tell me what's the hypothesis? What were we trying to prove from all of the experiment? Or what did they come out from the experiment? Minna.
The effect on infant isolation on socialization.
The effect of isolation on
Of infants on socialization.
طيب, who can tell me what's the result? Was the hypothesis proven correct or not? Based on what conditions? Daniel.
Yes.
We said that a hypothesis that was supposed to be tested اللي هي effect of isolation on socialization in infants. دي theory or the hypothesis that they were trying to prove. طب ايه البروف بقى؟ what's the ايه اللي حصل؟ Give me the statement. اللي هو لما حصل كذا بقى كذا، لما حصل كذا بقى كذا.
Socialization had a great effect on the monkeys
For up until ايه؟ ايه البيريد اللي فرقت؟ up until what what time frame؟
6 months.
3 months. اللي هو the conclusion of the hypothesis should be that for up to 3 months isolation did not affect the baby monkeys or the infants. Therefore, it did not affect the process of socialization. More than 6 months, isolation affected the monkeys and therefore it affected the process of socialization. Do you understand?
Yes.
Do you all understand grade 12? This is the way I'm going to ask you on experiments. I'll ask you on the hypotheses. I'll ask you on the control group. I'll ask you on the experimental group. I'll ask you on the conditions, what happened. And finally, I'll ask you on the statement, what was proven. Clear? Do you have any questions for today?
No.
Grade 12, any questions?
No.
No.
Okay, please, after the
my
session ends, you have to go back and write them down. I can't hear you. Who's talking?
I have a question.
Mhm.
هي الهايبوثيسز اللي هي they wanted to test whether monkeys when they isolate
Hypothesis اللي هي the reason that we're carrying out the experiment for. الhypothesis was to test whether isolation affects the process of socialization on babies, infants يعني, or not. The reason why we carried out the experiment. أو this is what we're trying to prove. Isolation had effect ولا لأ. In the middle بقى في conditions. إيه اللي حصل؟ less than 3 حصل إيه؟ more than 6 حصل إيه؟ لما كبروا حصل إيه؟ males حصل إيه؟ females حصل إيه؟ في الآخر خالص الستيتمنت بقى اللي هو it's like the rule اللي هو less than 3 months ما أثرتش على حاجة. more than 6 months it affected them وعملت كذا وكذا. Clear? You need to go back in your notebooks, write experiment 1 on rhesus monkeys, and then write the things that we talk about as titles اللي هو hypotheses, control group, what was it? اللي هي the parts that we discussed exactly now, so you don't forget it. Clear?
Okay.
Do you have any questions?
Should we send you the notes?
No, keep it for yourself. You already have this video as backup. يعني I already explained it exactly with the same titles. So you can write it down and then go back to the video. I'll be saying the
Okay.
exact same thing that you're supposed to write down. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. I'll see you tomorrow.
Bye bye.
Bye.